show.
He directed The Flash.
But I didn't write it.
You know who did?
This guy.
That guy.
Look who it is, man.
Zach Stans in the
Zach Stans,
house.
the writer of this week's episode of The Flash, which I directed. Today I'm Fat Man, I'm Batman.
Those illustrations are quite slimming.
You know what I'm saying?
Lovely.
It is.
Can I get one too?
Absolutely.
Like it
fulfillment.
beats
We were
losing
looking
weight,
at it
man.
last week and going like, this is unreal. What a lie. The show begins with a lie of two cartoons of us who could get laid. We can't.
No, I mean,
Even though we did get married. So technically we
I was gonna say I've seen the
Why are we putting
Offspring.
ourselves down?
I've seen the
Exactly.
Offspring. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure they're yours.
Good point. You hear that?
Huh?
This guy's a writer. He's written stuff and he knows that we've had sex. So that means something.
Yay.
Welcome to Fat Man, I'm Batman. I'm Kevin Smith.
Mark Bernard.
Wearing my Flash ring today, ladies and gentlemen, because it is Flash Day.
Wearing my Flash t-shirt.
You wore the wrong Flash t-shirt.
Shit.
I wore the correct Flash t-shirt.
Yes! Yes! Now, this is a man without whom there is no Flash episode this week, ladies and gentlemen. I would have got up to Vancouver and been like, pourquoi? Because there would have been nothing to do had it not been written by this fine gentleman right here, Zach Stentz, what you call a Hollywood screenwriter. Give him a single. Tell him what you've written before. Look in that camera
Give him the
with
fancy.
authority, the way a writer does it, and tell him.
My name is Zach Stentz, and I am a co-writer of Agent Cody Banks,
Nice!
the first Thor, and X-Men First Class, as well as a whole bunch of other things that never got made.
Now,
And some
okay.
television. Let's not
Oh,
slight.
and
TV.
in TV, I've written for Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles, Fringe, and now The Flash.
And the Flash, go to a wide or a two-shot or whatever. Flash, he did such a good job on. Is there a camera? Flash, he did such an amazing job on. Like spoilers, he coming back next season, man. I ain't burying the lead. I'm coming back next season. They said it on the internet. I saw that on the internet.
was on the internet.
They can't take it
The
away.
internet never lies.
Yeah, Warner Brothers said it to the internet, so done. But
You know, great people, great show, and they order from great places for lunch. So
is that what is good about it? I think I can't spoil this, and I can't speak for anybody until T's are crossed and I's are dotted. But I think when I come back, I might, if I'm lucky, get another Zach Stentz script. Is that premature to say, sir?
I don't think I'm authorized to say it.
Back
but
to me.
I
Back
think
to me
that,
for authorization. Authorization, Cam. I'm authorized to say it.
I'll allow it.
I said thank you. The judge has weighed in, ladies and gentlemen. One of the things I asked for when I said, because it wasn't like, here are my demands. I wanted to go back. I begged them to go back to the show. But I said, please, the one thing I want is I want to keep that whole team together. They have alternating shoot crews because they do shoot so many episodes. So it's not like the other crew are wonderful people, and I worked with both because a piece of my episode, the tail end, our tag with Zoom and the metas, was shot on Armin's set, the director of the previous episode. So I did get to work with that other crew, but I spent a majority of the time with the crew on the odd episode, my episode. So I said, if I come back, when I come back, if you let me come back, can I do it with that crew again? I kept saying, can I keep the home team together? And it looks like we'll be able to keep the home team together even more so because Zach probably
nuts.
is doing the script, man. And I'm telling you right now, go to a 3 or whatever, or something.
Or something.
I'm telling you right, you just watch that episode, like it's a special episode. It goes in, pulls, like cleaves your chest in twain, opens it, pulls the heart out, shows you your heart, kisses it, and then eats it in front of you. It's a heartbreaking episode. That all starts with the script. It was heartbreaking on the page. As soon as I hit the page where I turned and he goes, and it was a scene, it was an act break in the script, but we wound up going a little further in the cut in terms of we married 2 scenes together. But the act break was him going, Mom? Like, oh, it immediately I started rolling. Let's go back to...
And I wish I could take credit for that. That one, that was Andrew Kreisberg saying the act out had been slightly different, and it's like, dude, this is the strongest place to go out. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, yeah, of course.
Totally. And
That's
then,
why you're the EP.
but then, to be fair, then we changed it. It should have gone out on Mom, but our act, we felt like that's not it. Like, because once you see Nora, you just want to get into it. So we took it one step further and did the whole scene in that
That's right,
dining
that's
room
right.
and took it all the way to where she touches her face. And that was the if all we had to do was stay with them for a minute and 45 seconds more, and we got to rip their hearts out of the chest of the audience for that moment. And that was a beautiful, beautiful moment. Let's let's go back to the beginning. Like Zach's done a bunch of things. We'll touch on those things. But first, since Flash is fresh in our heads and whatnot, let's talk about that. How did you get the job? How did you wind up writing the script?
Well, interestingly enough, I was working with Greg Berlanti and Andrew Kreisberg and Sarah Schechter, the kind of amazing trio that make that amazing machine run. And we were working on a different project that I'm not really allowed to talk about right now.
Go to a two-shot.
But-
Of us. Go to us. Go to us. We know what it is.
We totally do.
We can't tell you. But
Not
it's-
at all. It's awesome.
Anyway,
Yes. Yes. Back to Zach now.
we were working on a project together, and Greg was becoming a new dad, which was amazing. But he was taking a little time off, and so we had this gap in the amount of time that we were working on it. And Andrew came up to me and said, "Well, you know, we don't want you to be bored. Do you want to write a Flash episode for us?" And you know, I was thinking, I love the show. It's my middle son's absolute favorite show, and it was a wonderful opportunity to get my feet wet in TV again, and to learn kind of how these people worked, and kind of build up that rapport. And so I immediately said yes, and jumped into it, and then found out, lo and behold, it was going to be directed by someone who I have been an admirer of since I was a wannabe in my 20s, reading Spike, Mike, Slackers, and Dykes.
Oh my God!
And
Deep Cuts book, dude.
reading about the behind the scenes of the '90s indie film scene in Sundance, and who was in the hot tub with who. And see, yeah, I made him blush.
You did.
And you know, what an amazing opportunity. And Greg and Andrew had a specific idea, because you know the show is pretty tightly serialized.
That's what I
It's
want to ask. Like, when they say you want to write an episode, are you just like, go nuts? You have to work within a structure of some
Yeah,
sort, right?
I worked within the structure that they gave me. They were like, here's what we're thinking the big thing is. We know there's going to be a villain that's going to be a zombie version of a season 1 villain come back to life. And then we had a little discussion over, well, which one do we like? And we all kind of landed on Girder, because he's a big physical presence.
Totally.
And,
Greg Finley,
and he had a
he's great.
connection, and he had a connection with Iris, which got us the opportunity to draw Iris into the A story really well. So you know, they had some big ideas for it and how it would go. We sat in a room together with them and with Todd and Aaron, the other EPs of the show.
Unsung heroes on that
those
show.
Those guys are fantastic.
Yeah, give me a two-shot. I always talk about Kreisberg because we had Andrew on the show, and Berlanti because it's his universe and stuff. But the Helbings, man, one of the Helbings kids gets his name on the Runaway Dinosaur book, and he did the artwork for
That's
the cover
wonderful.
of the book. So this dude, like when you see the author of the book, when you look at the Runaway Dinosaur, his kid drew the picture and his kid's name's in the book. But the Helbings are wonderful. Like they are the glue that keeps that show like the way people like it. Really, really strong talent. But for some reason, whenever we talk about the Flash, they always get left out of the conversation.
Yeah, but my process, honestly, from listening to your description of how you did it, it was very similar in that it wasn't, you know, oh, here comes the feature writer coming in to Bigfoot everything, and it's
Right.
like, this is how we do it in movies. It wasn't like that at all. It was me going, you guys have built this amazing show and this wonderful machine. How do I fit into it?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the pleasure of it.
I mean,
and
I'm sure it also helped that you've got some TV experience. Like, it's not like your first time in this.
Yeah, not my first
world.
rodeo. Not
Yeah.
my first rodeo in TV. So, you know, you understand when it's time to, it's like, yeah, I'm implementing someone else's vision, but here's all of the personal stuff. I have a close relationship with my mom, and, you know, there was a lot of mom stuff in there. There was a lot of, when we first started talking about it, and they were saying, and it's Barry and the Speed Force, and it's a little bit like the Prophets and Deep Space Nine, the wormhole aliens and things like that. And then, you know, and as we were talking, we had the idea that he was kind of going through the Kubler-Ross stages of grief in terms of being in the Speed Force. At first, he's angry and he's in denial, and then he's depressed about it, and then he finally comes to a place of acceptance by the end. But as we were talking about it, and kind of talking about him not coming to terms, that the deep thing was that he's never come to terms with the death of his mother and his own role in it, and that he understands that he's not going to, and that the lesson the Speed Force is trying to teach him is, dude, if you're going to be a hero, you're going to have to learn how to live with tragedy and move on from it, because that's part of the job you signed up for. So as we were talking about that, I said,
Can I get a two-shot real quick? I directed the episode. I didn't even know what that was about. Are you serious? That's beautiful, man. That's really good. He's a writer. Back to him. Sorry.
No, thank you. And as we're talking, I sort of blurted out, because I love kids' books and I'm a parent myself. I was like, oh, this reminds me of The Runaway Bunny, which was kind of a touchstone of it. And if all of you are familiar or not familiar with the children's classic by Margaret Weiss Brown, it's about a bunny who keeps saying that he wants to run away from his mom, and his mom saying, wherever you are, I'm going to be there, in a different form. And on one level, it's a little stalkerish, but on another level,
You'll never have a life, kid, because I'll always be there.
On another level, it's about unconditional love between a parent and a child, and on a show that regularly brings me to tears with exactly that subject,
Yes.
It seemed really great. And then we realized it's like, how about instead of The Runaway Bunny, what if we do our own version of it? And that's, thinking about every little boy, I was thinking about Barry as a little boy and thinking like, what do little boys love more than anything? Dinosaurs. So let's make the book about a mommy dinosaur. Let's make the book about a mommy dinosaur and her little dinosaur, and how that reflects on how Barry feels about his own mom.
Which was beautiful, and they did such a great job with it. Especially, there's a scene, as we've seen now. I don't have to be like, there's a scene. The scene where she reads to him, where Nora in the Speed Force reads him the book. It's beautiful, really like touching, emotional stuff. The scene itself is beautiful. The contents of the book, really beautiful. The book story, though, like, this is a weird background book story, and this is a telling story about somebody who doesn't have a boy. I got a daughter. So originally it was Runaway Bunny, because we named the episode was named after the book. But clearing Runaway Bunny, you got to clear it, becomes a thing and stuff. And rather than go through the rigmarole, we were just like, look, make something up. This is TV. So I said, call it, I was staying close to Bunny, because I was like, call it Run Bunny Run, because that's Run Barry Run is the thing of the show. And when I got the draft of the script, and it was dinosaur, I was like, dinosaur? I was like, why dinosaur? And there was a line at one point in the script, it was like, boys and their dinosaurs. I was like, oh, because I wasn't a traditional boy growing up, so I didn't like dinosaurs were in my thing. But I had a daughter, and she was elephants more so than dinosaurs. And it's not like girls can't be into dinosaurs, lots of them are, but that is a very...
Not imposed gender roles.
Yeah, so exactly. But it is a very, it was a telling sign that my kid was not a dinosaur person, that I read that script going, dinosaur?
Who likes dinosaurs?
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, I'm a man, I don't like dinosaurs. And it's beautiful, man. It's actually really sweet, particularly when he gets to... when he starts reading the book aloud to her and from memory, and that's when it starts gushing. It's a really sweet moment.
Yeah, and I mean, thinking about the books that your parents read you and the books that you read your kids and things like that, there are ones that my mom read to me that I can recite by heart. And those are some of the most cherished memories that you carry with you as an adult, are those little moments of bonding with your parents and feeling so open and vulnerable. I know there was a little bit of fear. I don't know where it came from, probably the network or something like that it's like, well, doesn't Barry seem like a little kid, or doesn't he, we don't want him to regress too much, but it's like when you have Grant, like someone who's willing to be emotionally open and vulnerable in a way that you never see in a superhero story.
Right.
It's he can be that, but then stand up and I'm gonna go fight the bad guy now. That's to me where the Flash lives as a show, and what it's bringing to the table that none of those other shows or movies for that matter are.
Yeah, I remember as a kid growing up in New York, we would always go to the Museum of Natural History on school trips. Did you ever go from Jersey?
No.
You wouldn't cross state lines?
I don't know anything. Heavens, no. The big city? That's scary.
But it was always the thing was, you go there, you see the dinosaurs. They had the skeletons of everything. And I remember asking a teacher, when I got older and started to bring my kids, how come kids like dinosaurs so much? And she said, because it's the first thing that a kid sees that's bigger than their parents.
Ah.
Like it is literally the first thing that is towering over the people who tower over them. Like it is this thing that's larger
That's interesting.
than
That's
the
kinda
world
cool.
they've ever seen before.
He's a writer.
And I think that, granted, I'm still a little raw on the episode, so I haven't gotten to digest it yet, but the idea that the Speed Force is bigger than Barry, and that it all kind of dovetails in the thing like responsibility and earning your place in the world and being okay with being a part of something that's bigger than you are.
All right, let's ask the writer. Is that what you were thinking when you wrote that?
Not consciously, but I'm going with that. I'm going with that. I
See,
like
he's
that.
good, right? Like also,
I
you're like,
love
yeah,
it.
that's what my move.
Yeah, I think that's thematic. I think that's thematically really dead on because it is Barry coming up against Barry and the Speed Force. It's Barry coming up against limits. It's Barry coming up against and as we were breaking it and we were talking about the different stages that he was going through, and I remember talking to Greg and Andrew, and at one point, they were like, well, should he be angry at any point, and what should it be? And I was saying, well, in a way, this is the scene. This is the episode where he gets to talk to God.
Yes.
And don't you always want the scene where Captain Kirk tells God to go fuck himself?
Yes.
What does God need with a starship?
Exactly. It's like and the Speed Force has put Barry through a lot of awful stuff, and you kind of want Barry to call the Speed Force on that and say, this is effed up what you guys are doing to me. Yeah, I've busted my ass. I've killed myself, literally killed myself trying to make use of this, and now you're telling me I'm not worthy because I'm rejecting my gift? What, screw you guys.
Yeah, it is. It's a real. That's why I was trying to like dance around it before they started put the preview together and stuff like that, and the pictures started getting online. But people were like, "What is the episode about?" I'm like, "Well, Barry meets his maker," and people were like, and then like literally, that's kind of what it is. It can't it's weird. As I watched the whole episode, I'm like, this would totally play for like a real Christian crowd because it's Barry meeting God more or less. It's just the Speed Force.
Did you get the scene with Joe when he's explaining the Speed Force?
Dude,
that's very loosely paraphrased from a Sandman comic.
What? Tell which one? Holy crap!
The one where he's saying, when the first elementary
Yes.
particle sprung into being, and when the last.
We called it the Matrix moment while we were shooting. We're like, once we get Jesse into the chair, we can do our architect Matrix moment or our Morpheus moment, where he's just like, "Do you know what the Matrix is to you?"
I know you're a Sandman fan.
Huge
In the big run of the Sandman, the first episode, the first issue where they gave Death her own issue, she gives this great monologue about like Death being the first thing and the one who's gonna turn out the lights on the universe when it's and put the chairs on the tables and lock the door behind her when she leaves at the end of the universe. And I always thought that was so profound.
Is that the one with the guy who wouldn't die, where she keeps meeting that guy throughout his life?
I'm not sure if it was the same one,
he's
but
like-
it was in that run. It was in that run
issue where she's at
in
the
a
park
doll's
where
house.
she meets Dream in the park, and that's where we meet Death for the first time.
Right.
And you're like, "Oh, cool chick in an arc," and then you're like, "It's Death! What an ingenious."
But yeah,
approach
Joe
to
is the Speed Force's speech was shall we say inspired by that Sandman
How
moment.
awesome is that to know that like even it's a comic book show and comic books inspired even like moments within it. Now, tell him as a writer, because some cats that don't do this, that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Some cats are like, "What? You took that from Sandman?" No, he's inspired by it, man. You paraphrase like writers, all artists crib and steal from people in real life, other movies they see.
Oh,
Something makes you
absolutely.
feel a certain way. You're like, "I'm gonna do my version of that and stuff." So that was you going like, "Oh, I'll always like that speech. Let me do a version of that speech."
No, it's funny. I'm developing. As I'm working on the Flash, I'm also developing a show of my own for. I can't say Freeform, formerly ABC Family,
Right.
and it's a kind of genre show and big genre elements. And I remember talking to another writer about it and saying like, I think we need a Prince Zuko. And like, and there were other people in the room, and half the people are like, "What are you talking about?" And then anyone who watched Avatar: The Last Airbender was like, "Oh yeah, we want the seeming villain who's actually a tortured soul and who ends up having a heel face turn at the end." And like, it's you go, I mean, we in the Flash writers' room we talk about Buffy all the time.
Really? Is that the reference
is a great. I mean, it's a reference point, but as a show that did genre and kind of pioneered the whole structure of like the big bad for the season and things like that. A lot of the terms that genre TV uses were kind of pioneered by those first few seasons of Buffy.
Yeah,
Wow.
like we're all a synthesis, right? Like we're all like sort of making our way through the world, and we just take and we absorb, and at some point we kind of just output. Like, hey, that's a thing I remember loving when I was 8. Like, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about that. I read this book once. This was awesome.
Yeah.
Think about the moment with he's talking about his relationship with his mother. All the books that him and his mom ever read together led to that sequence, which is, it's an indelible memory if you watch that show. Like, if I was a guy just watching the show, I had nothing to do with it even, I'd be like, one of my favorite scenes in the world was when he sat there and read with his mother. Are you kidding me? It's like beautiful.
I think writing is always going to be good when it comes from a real and personal place in people, and it drives me freaking nuts when people talk about comic book movies and comic book shows as somehow, it's just people in capes punching each other or what have you, and there's so many ways of making it personal, of investing it. There's a scene in X-Men First Class that's right out of like, this is how it felt to be in college and finally meet people who you felt like understood you for the first time in your life. It's like, I don't know what it's like to be a mutant, but I know what it's like to meet people for the first time in my life who I feel understand me.
Right.
And those are the kinds of personal access points that I think all of us as storytellers put in our work, at least,
I mean, like Thor is very much about like two brothers fighting for the love of a father. Like everything else, whatever else is happening there, is these two kids, one of which he then finds out he's adopted and doesn't feel like he's worth the same amount of love, maybe, but it's very much about fathers and sons and dueling for emotion and for affection.
No,
You buy
absolutely. And what's that?
You buy that?
Oh, that's exactly what that's
Good
job,
writer.
that's what we always talked about is it's like, we got frickin' Kenneth Branagh. It's like this is a Shakespearean family drama about a king and two princes.
Walk us through that. So, was that the first? Agent Cody Banks was the first. Was it
Yeah, that was
spec?
like 15.
Was it
No, we
hire?
got brought in by a producer who's a dear friend of ours to rewrite a script that needed a lot of love and a lot of TLC.
And this is you and Ashley Miller.
This was me and Ashley Edward Miller. So we went in and did that, and then we got rewritten in turn by the guys who are now doing the O.J. Simpson show.
Really?
Scott and Larry. These. So we got rewritten by like Oscar caliber writers.
Scott and the
Scott
guys that
Alexander
did
and
Scott
Larry-
Alexander
and
and
Larry
Larry
Karaszewski?
I can't pronounce his last
Karaszewski,
name.
whatever. The
Karaszewski.
guys that did People vs. Larry Flint.
Yeah.
So they did that
Yeah,
OJ thing.
Yeah, and they did the OJ thing.
I know I'm late, but now I feel like I should watch it.
You should
Did you
totally
watch it?
It's amazing.
Yeah, they're pretty
You
amazing
sold me a ticket
writers.
to I'm going to totally watch it. So those dudes rewrote you on
Those
Agent Cody Banks?
and we all shared credit together, and it was
Right.
very amicable. I'm friends with them on Facebook now, as always happens.
Is that a thing for like how many times have you ever been rewritten or had to share co-writing credit in a place where it wasn't somebody you invited in with you?
Every single time.
What's it feel like as a writer? Because I'm a writer, and if that happens to me, I'd be like, how does it? What is it? How do you deal?
I mean, you kind of you have to be philosophical about it. You have to take a step back and say, you know what? I am one of several hundred people who contributed to this. And I can see stuff up there that's me. I can see stuff up there that's the writer who came before me. I can see stuff up there that's the writer who came after me. And the credit will be what it will be. Sometimes, Thor ended, we all like fought each other in arbitration. It ended with what we all thought was a pretty fair credit, and we became good friends with the late Don Payne, who had rewritten us on Thor. And the X-Men First Class process was not as amicable, but we ended up with a credit we were really happy with. And they're like huge sections of that movie that it's like, oh yeah, they just shot what we wrote there. And then there are other sections that are like, I don't remember any of that.
Why did they kill the black guy?
Quiet.
Dude, I did a panel in Washington D.C. where I had to defend that decision, which, by the way, you know, I fought strenuously against. Sitting next to Ta-Nehisi Coates, who had
Writer of
just
Black Panther?
you know, who had just written an article for the New York Times about taking his son to see X-Men First Class and how disappointed they were by the black guy dying halfway through. So, like, literally the preeminent, you know, black male nonfiction writer in America is standing next to me. I'm like,
Giving you shit
I'm like,
about
you
a
know,
thing you
no, he
didn't
was
do.
so nice. He's the nicest guy. But you know, and we went out with, you know, later with Neil Drumming, you're a friend, and got incredibly drunk. But
As you do with Neil Drumming.
as one does. But yeah, I mean, you know, but honestly, if your name is on it, you need to own it. Whether you were in favor of the decision or whether you weren't, it's like, yeah, you know, that happened. That was a decision that was made. It went. My name is on it, and I cashed the check.
All right, take us through Thor. How do you get the job? Like, you have to audition, you go into a room and be like, here's my idea for the story, or they're like, this is the story. Ash and I went on one of those general writers meetings that you go on all the time. I don't know what that is, because nobody generally invites me to shit, so what is that?
Yeah. You know, where studios want to get to know new writers and want to get to know you, and kind of, you know, it's butt sniffing, essentially. It's dogs butt sniffing and
Nice.
seeing if they think your butt smells good or not. We had one of those meetings, and it was great. We pitched a bunch, you know, it's like, here's some different Marvel properties we should do stuff with, and it's like,
Who do you
hey,
meet with in that world?
it's like Feige.
So he's in the room.
Yeah, I mean, this was way back this was like 2009.
It's
you
like
know,
phase
way
one,
back,
phase one
way
Marvel.
early phase one. You know, Craig Kyle, people like that, really good people. So we had a great meeting, and it was like, oh, that was great. I think we pitched Power Pack.
Holy crap, really?
Yeah, and then, you know, we're
Swinging
like,
low.
oh god, this was before that, because this was before the writers' strike.
Yeah,
it was
that's right.
that far back.
Wow.
So the writers' strike happened. I remember, like, it was late 2008. Ash and I were sitting in our office at the Terminator writers' room, weirdly enough, looking at a picture of Treat Williams in Everwood on the wall. Greg Berlanti show.
That's a great blind.
Just showing how these things are connected. And I remember turning to Ash and saying, remember that meeting we had with Marvel a year ago? We're never going to hear from them again. Literally the next day they called and said, you guys know anything about Thor? I will confess, I didn't know a lot about Thor. Ash knew Thor backwards and forwards, so of course, of course we do. We know, you know. But Ash, because, you know, it's like he can talk Beta Ray Bill for 20 minutes.
Right.
You know, so they called us in. We were very lucky in that we were in the right place in the right time. They needed, at that point, they were rushing a schedule. Thor came out in 2011. Originally, it was supposed to be a 2010 movie. They had a script that didn't work. They were going in a completely different direction, because before, like, Mark Protasiewicz had done a really good script of Thor, but it was all Viking era. It was all off in its own world, mythological story. And now that they had phase one, they were like, okay, half of it needs to be on Earth, and it needs to start setting up the fact that he's going to be in the Avengers, and we have the vague idea that Loki is a good villain and is going to be a big villain later on. The fact that we knew comic books was great. What was even more important is because we were TV guys, they knew we were fast. So they brought us in. They had us meet with Ken, who's already the director. They said, here's our idea for the movie. We're like, okay, well, we like these parts. There's no third act, and you need to turn here, and there's no force of opposition the entire time he's on Earth. Here are our solves for that. They're like, that sounds pretty good. Contract came really quickly, and then I think we had 3 weeks to write the first draft. We were like, it was like a TV schedule. We were turning out.
And you're not rewriting. This is from a page one.
This was
build.
This was a page one based very loosely on story beats that they gave us.
Okay.
We found out
Almost
later.
so kind of like what you did in Flash as
It was
well.
a
Somebody's
lot like it was
"Here
a
are the
lot
beats."
like that. It was a lot like that. There were beats that they had and beats that they didn't have, and we were kind of working them together. You know, at one point point it was like, okay, we want S.H.I.E.L.D. to be in there. And they're like, we can't have S.H.I.E.L.D. as the bad guys. No, not the bad guys, just the people opposing Thor. They'll be the good guys by the end. Trust us. And then they're like, well, you can have S.H.I.E.L.D., but Sam Jackson's holding us up in negotiations, so we don't know if we can have Nick Fury. And we're like, well, how about that Clark Gregg guy from the first Iron Man? He was great, and he popped. Can we have Coulson? And they're like, Coulson. Oh, him, yeah.
Are you
can have
shitting
him.
me? So you guys are probably the ones that start them going, hey, let's thread Coulson throughout all of these.
Yeah,
Had he been in anything other than Iron Man?
No, they ended up giving him a bigger role in Iron Man 2 because they liked how he was popping and how he was popping in Thor. Clark Gregg actually sent us a T-shirt, sent us T-shirts as a thank you for.
He should send you like gold bullion every
Fucking
month.
T-shirt. I'm holding out for something higher, man.
I
He
want a
became a
gift
big
basket.
part of that world.
Clark
He
is-
became the centerpiece of the Avengers. The whole reason they go to battle
He's got
in the
a
third
TV
act
show.
is because a T-shirt, Zach.
I know you want to know who owes us and hasn't said anything was, like partway through there was like, and then the S.H.I.E.L.D. sniper takes aim, and then it's like we identify Barton, and they're like, oh, but if we get Hawkeye, we'll have to get a real actor. And then they realize it's like, oh, we can just shoot the A side, and then when we cast for the Avengers, we'll just go back and shoot a thing with that actor.
Really?
Yeah,
That's how that was planned.
Yeah,
That's
and then
cool.
that's so Jeremy Renner, you're welcome.
All right, take us through First Class. How does that happen? How do you get that job? Who do you have to meet with?
First Class, we met with an awesome executive at Fox. We had another general meeting, and it was with Drew Crivello, this really smart guy. He ended up at Warner later, but he's also kind of the secret father of Deadpool. Like, he was the one who was like, while we were working on X-Men, he was bringing me into his office and he was showing me this cut scene from a DC game and saying, like, superhero stuff has never been directed this well. It's like, I think the guy who directed this
Was Tim Miller?
It was Tim Miller. He was the one who got Rhett and Paul, Reese and Wernick, writing Deadpool, and he was the guy who said, I think Tim Miller is the next great director, and like got him on.
He was
That
right.
guy.
He was absolutely right. That Tim Miller kid, he's got a future.
Yeah, exactly. So Drew brought us in. We had a great general. He's like, I love you guys. I want to find something for you. And we walked out of it going, yeah, we'll never hear from him again. And then like 2 weeks later, it was, okay, we want you to come in and we want you to read a script. You have to stay in the office and read it. And then we want you to react to it. And then we want you to leave. And it was a draft that they had of X-Men First Class that was not working. Mm-hmm. And they said, here's the deal. Tom Rothman, then head of the studio, has set a release date. We don't have a director. We know who we want to direct. We want Matthew Vaughn to direct. And if we can't get him, we want someone else really good. And we know we're not going to get a director of that caliber with this script. You guys have 3 weeks to turn this into a script that works. Go. Bryan Singer was then a producer on it. We met with Bryan a couple of times. He had some, he had actually come up with the kind of the bones of the idea for, the like Cuban Missile Crisis and Sebastian Shaw's the bad guy and things like that. So we met with him. He helped us break story a little bit, but then it was off to the races, and that was another 3-week special. So we ended up working on that, and that was like TV because having how big movies work.
I don't. I've seen a few, and they seem very expensive.
But I mean, a $150 million movie that a year before your release date you do not have a script and do not have a director is. It's not unprecedented, but it's almost unprecedented.
Yeah.
So they were
It's dangerous,
they were
to say the least.
It's incredibly dangerous. So we like to say we taught them all the wrong lessons. That you can do that. You can throw it together at the last second. It'll actually turn out pretty well.
It's a good movie, man. It's like a strong story. It's a fun script.
I really like it. I really like it a lot.
Yeah. That movie plays, and it shouldn't because it's Thor, but it works. That movie works by the time I love the fact that it's Asgard and Earth. I love the relationships that they set up. Like, I like that movie, man.
Yeah,
It's really
First
good.
Class is also just a really good.
Let's talk about Thor. We should
yeah.
be talking about First Class.
Nah,
I'm sorry,
talk
I
about
went
either of
backwards.
them.
But I mean, they
I'll
both of those
I'm
things-
just gonna
First
stick
Class
with all
is a really good movie.
Both of
too.
those movies set the table for what's going to come. I mean, Coulson is a big part of it. You know, Hawkeye is introduced there. You get all of those, like the Gen 1 versions of the X-Men. Without that stuff, you don't have the other 4 movies that they're spinning out of that.
Yeah, no, I
So, yeah, good work.
Was really proud. Was
In
really proud of the work
summation?
we did on both of those.
Yeah.
So that led you to eventually the job that you're doing over with Berlanti and at Warner Brothers that we won't talk about, but eventually led to Flash as well.
Yes, that led there. There's a not a straight line, but at least the maze that they give you, like when you're at the kids' restaurant with the crayons,
Right.
like you can draw on the crayon and get from there to there.
You got Dolly to Big Boy, did you? That's what it sounds like. All right, let's talk about the Flash episode again. So you wrote the episode. Eventually, you have to see the episode be directed. And this was one where generally, when you look at things, as you said before, you're like, oh, we did that. Someone else did that. Someone else did that. But this is you all the way through, right? Like, there's nobody came in after you. You're the sole writer.
I mean, there were, as you know from seeing it, the script gets increasingly rainbow colored.
Not too much though on our draft, from what I understood. Like
Yeah,
production, they were like, "This is the fewest drafts we've ever seen." Because that script from draft 1 was the money. Right away, you were like, "There's really nothing to do except tighten it, if anything."
I think I did like 2 or 3 rewrites, and then I think the Helbings and Andrew did their own like
Showrunner prerogative.
added their showrunner special sauce,
Right.
I should be so lucky as to have writers that good doing that.
It's like truly, you've got people who are like, "Oh, we do this every week, so let's just do a flash pass on it real quick," and it makes it look even better. You're like, "Oh my lord!" All right, so when the script is done, it goes off to get made and stuff. You're off working on the other thing again. Then eventually they're like, "Hey, here's a cut of it. You can watch it."
Yeah, they got me a cut a couple weeks ago, and I was really happy. And it's really fun because my kids are really interested in how production works,
Right.
and so it was a lock cut, but it was without the final VFX. So it was really fun seeing like the anime. It's like, and then Barry is in the Speed Force, and it's like a
And it says Barry VFX,
Barry
like in big
VFX
letters
in
on top
Speed
of it.
Force. Shouts to
Isn't it amazing though, considering you're watching green screen and sometimes you're watching a scene that literally has those words on the screen, like VFX, TBD, or whatever the fuck. As you watch it, you can see through it because their performances are so strong, and also that was a strong script.
Yeah,
story
hey,
and characters.
My first TV show was the syndicated action hour, where like the final special effects were not much better than
our beginning
than the
special effects on the Raw.
animatics that we did. So I'm very experienced in using my imagination. It's like, okay, I can squint and imagine the good version of this. Except the thing about the Flash is they give you the good version week after week.
And what they also do too is like hats off to the post-production crew on that show. Armin and his folks like do the final special effects, but even when you're cutting the episode together, they have people in the office that could do temp effects. So anytime he was zooping and leaving, they were able to throw lightning onto even a temp cut that you're looking at, which goes a long way toward like, oh my lord. Like honestly, the temp special effects in the first loose cut of Flash probably better than the final special effects in Dogma, the feature. Granted it was 1999, but it's like, and you could do a lot more now, but like they looked really presentable. So
bet
much so that I'm like, I'll live with that.
Armin could like VFX the hell out of your shit demon.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. Armin could have went back in time and gave us a really good looking poop monster.
The King Shark episode. Our good friends Ben and Derek wrote it, and I
You
know
guys
it was.
know the guys that wrote that
I know the
episode?
Oh
guys.
yeah,
who wrote that
and they're
episode,
now
co-executive
on the
producers.
co-EPs on the show.
How does that happen? So what happens? You write an episode and they're like, come be on the show.
Yeah, it's-
when does a
it's an
writer
audition.
become an EP? What is the difference and when does that happen?
It's I've never been an EP. It's not like getting jumped into the gang, but it's
Why not? God, Zach, that'd be amazing if like Berlanti's a
Berlanti just smacks the shit out of you.
You got like a ring mark right on
And
your face.
Kreisberg's a big guy. He looks like he could. He
huge.
looks like he could hit
He
hard.
punches down, man.
Yeah.
He's just like he's Batman
got good
punching you
long
on
arms
the floor.
with
But
windmills.
it's
Yes.
all of those. A lot of people don't know like those terms. Like supervising producer, co-EP, EP. Those are rank terms. It's like captain, colonel, major, general,
2-star
kind
general,
of thing.
3-star general.
2-star general, 3-star general, and EP is like the you salute the EP.
Yeah, Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet, basically.
Yeah.
When you get when you go from a writer to what is the next thing?
Writer to story editor, and then executive story editor, and then co-producer,
co-producer.
then producer, supervising producer, co-EP, EP.
And that's all all different names for writer.
Yeah, all of those people are writers, except some of the EPs don't write. That gets complicated. But all of them are. But their rank structures and their how much everyone's getting paid in regard
Right.
to everyone
And so
else.
for Derek and Ben, those guys have been working in TV for about a decade now, and they started as baby writers on a TV show, and then they slowly worked their way up. They were just on Beauty and the Beast. They are friends, Andrew Kreisberg.
Song as old as time.
So it's not-
Beauty and the Beast, the movie.
No, the TV show on the
TV show.
CW. There was a Beauty and the
They
Beast.
did another one. Yeah,
They did.
that's right.
But Derek and Ben.
No Ron
worked-
Perlman though.
No
That's what I
Ron
was thinking. I
Perlman.
thought it was the old one.
Not
I
the
was
good
like,
one.
How old are these
Yes,
guys?
as old as the hills. But Andrew Kreisberg had worked with both of those guys on Warehouse 13 1,000 years ago. And so now they have met back up. Hey, we're now at co-EP level. We'd like to do a freelance. Great, come on in, write us a King Shark. And then for next season, they got
So it was an
invited.
audition piece. It was an audition piece for staffing, and
so that means next year you come in?
knock that baby out of
If
the
he
park.
wants to.
If they want to. And I'm actually. I'm allowed to say this now. I'm coming in part-time as a consulting producer, which is kind of outside of the rank structure, but I'm going to write a few episodes, maybe even for my new best friend here.
He's definitely going to do that.
And
I demand that.
and mainly it's excuse to hang out with amazing creative people and eat snacks.
And work on a show that, like, admittedly, we like.
I love.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a fun show to watch. As a writer, how is it to watch other things? Can you just be like, I'm going to turn that part off and just consume and enjoy? Or is there a party that's like, I would change that, I wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have done that?
When I watch something for the first time, I always try and turn off the writer brain and turn on the fan brain.
Right.
And frankly, Flash makes it really easy because it tickles so many of my fanboy sweet spots. That's it's you go into that writer's room and you see on the board heart, humor, spectacle, and that's my.
That's literally up on
That
the
is
board?
literally written on the
need to
dry
go
erase
visit.
board.
That is
there.
emblazoned in my heart, humor, and spectacle, and in my brain.
Yeah, I think
Three
that's
words.
Andrew's Andrew
It is
Kreisberg.
a phenomenal recipe for anything almost anything, any movie should really be heart, humor, and spectacle. I like the heart,
My
humor,
dinner with
spectacle.
Andre.
Heart, humor, spectacle, two guys eating. I'll tell you this though, like directing that show, hands down. I'm not just saying it like in a positive way. Like, hey, we should be nice and say this. One of the best experiences of my career, and
Yeah.
not just my life, dude. Honestly, like probably a top 5 experience of my career, probably top 10 experience of my life. If you watch the behind the scenes footage like that they put up recently, like I'm beaming. I'm having like the time of my life. And that's because you gave me a great script to work with, dude. Like everyone loves this episode. Like honestly, I spent the day on Twitter like reading a bunch of people who are like, you're amazing. They haven't even seen the episode yet, but they've seen all the behind the scenes and the trailers and stuff. And I'm getting a lot of props and stuff, but it wouldn't happen without me, without you. You gave me a fucking gift, dude. I could walk in, and I said it in some of the interviews that I was doing the other day. Like, I was worried going into it. I was like, I want to do this, but like, I don't know how to direct like episodic that's been up for two seasons. But when I got there and I opened that script, it was like being at a poker table and being dealt a royal flush. You look at your cards and you're like, oh my Lord, like I'm going to run the table right now. And that's because you gave me something wonderful to work with.
Well, thank you. And you did an amazing job directing. And I'm going to say it was easy. And I'm not saying that to brag or to say it was easy because I was a good writer. It was easy because they created such wonderful characters who are, when you're sitting there, on final draft and it's like, what's Joe going to say? It's like, what Joe is going to say because they've written him so well and because Jesse Martin is going to deliver that line that's like, I wish you were my dad.
Yes. Oh my
Why
lord.
aren't you my dad, Joe?
You think it's that way watching the show? Just be on set with Jesse while he delivers a line, and when he's not even doing lines from the show. Like there was one point where he's Gary's a wonderful guy. He's got a great voice, great personality and energy on set, and also, I'm a big Rent fan, so
Yeah.
he was on set at one point and like he chit-chatting and stuff. I walked over and I went like I was gonna go talk to him about like something about the show. I walked over and I leaned over. I was like, "Live in my house," which is like that song that he sings in Rent. And he broke up, man. He's such a sweet guy. Like, yeah, I could. If you think you want him to be your father when you watch the show, hang out with him for 5 minutes.
Oh, man.
Like, you want him to be your father, your best friend, everything. Good actor, good.
Yeah,
dude.
but they're, I mean,
But you're
they're
right.
all
You
great.
got their voices because those, like, not only is the writing so amazing on the show, but you've got actors, like, you get to look at what's gone before, watch their performance, and kind of write
Yeah.
to the voice.
Exactly.
Like, you
It's
didn't get
not
to
like
do that on Thor.
Yeah, Thor. It's like big blonde guy.
yeah, like you don't know who it's gonna be.
Yeah, it could have been one of 8 big blonde guys. You know, I was there. You know, it's like, is that Alex Skarsgård? Yeah, is that the Sons of Anarchy guy?
Was there a chance that it might have been Alexander Skarsgård?
Yeah, those are the other two. Those are the other two main candidates were Charlie Hunnam and Skarsgård. But I love
That
those.
just snapped my brain. I think Hemsdale's wonderful, but
I love those
holy
guys,
shit.
but I think Hemsworth was the right choice
Hemsworth.
just
I said
because of that.
I was thinking of Hemsdale.
Just that freaking charm that freaking charm that he brought.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I remember seeing him in the beginning of Star Trek. I'm like, who is that guy?
That's
right.
right.
He's a
Crushed.
movie star.
And he has like 3 minutes in the movie.
Yeah.
And he made such an impact. That's right. I forgot about him.
Yeah.
He was a good choice.
The opening of JJ Star Trek like always brings my wife and I both to
know.
naming the baby.
It's
Tiberius,
fantastic.
God, that's a horrible name.
So damn good. Like that, honestly, you can see why, for the first 5 minutes of Star Trek alone, you can see why they gave him Star Wars. Like the first opening 5 minutes of Star Trek is so strong. You're in space. It's like, yeah, we get it, but it's about the human experience. In the midst of like giant warships firing upon one another, there's the birth of a kid and a guy who's trying to talk to his wife as she's going through it.
Yeah, no, it's great stuff.
All right, you guys, anything?
I got nothing. We should let him go. He's got to go.
He's gonna
I
go
gotta go
have
home and watch the episode.
He's
gotta
gonna
have
have
a
a
party.
watching party.
See how badly Kevin fucked it up.
I did. I totally dropped the ball on this one, man. I had a good script and I fucked it. That's what they told me on the
and
Flash. They
That's
said,
why
"You'll
they're
never go back."
inviting, and that's why they're inviting him back.
Again, man, I can't thank you enough, dude. You gave me. Look at this.
Oh, hugs.
This
Yeah.
man, like, you gave me credibility, dude, in a place where, I make weird movies now where I dress up like a sausage and shit. So I can take all the credibility that I could get. And the fact of the matter is, you gave me, like, great words to work with. And because of that, we turned in what I feel is a pretty wonderful episode. So
Thank
for
you.
that.
I can't wait for all of you to see it.
Yes.
There it is, folks. Thanks. Thanks.
Hey.
I was going all over. Thanks for hanging out with us here in the Fat Cave today. Big thanks to Zach Stentz, not just for writing the episode, but for all the scripts that he wrote, but also for coming in and talking tonight, man.
So
Good
my
man,
pleasure.
Charlie Brown.
Good man, Charlie Brown. There it is, folks. For Fat Man, I'm Batman. I'm Kevin Smith.
I'm Mark Bernard.
And this is Zach Stentz. Tune in with us next week. Us, not him. He's right. He's got a job. Leave him
stuff to
alone.
do.
He's got things to do. You heard?
Got a script to write.
Scripts he's working on. Same fat time for us. Same fat channel, smodcast.com or
YouTube.com/Kevin Smith.
Flash out.